Yes, he did. Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Thank you very much for joining us for another Donnybrook, our first in November. Looks like Congresswoman Cori Bush will have a primary opponent. We'll get into that. But first, let's meet our panelists, starting with Wendy Wiese from the Big 550 KTRS. Bill McClellan with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and STLtoday.com. Ray Hartmann from Substack, founder of the Riverfront Times, and editor and columnist with the St. Louis American, Alvin Reid. Well, maybe you'll notice on this show we have brand new artwork atop the mantle behind me, and we'd like to thank Morris Fletcher, great local artist. You can learn more about his work at morrisfletcherfineart.com, and you can also send your art to us, Donnybrook at 9pbs.org, and maybe you'll be on the mantle next month. Thank you so much, everybody, especially you, Morris. All right, Bill, I want to ask you about Congresswoman Cori Bush. I think it was just after October 6th when on this panel we were talking that she might find some opposition in the next year's election. And as it turns out, the county prosecutor, Wesley Bell, has thrown his hat in the ring, and there's speculation that others might also do the same thing. Do you think that Cori Bush, who this week really irritated a lot of people, when on Sunday she said that the Israeli retaliatory strike against Gaza was ethnic cleansing, do you think she's about to lose her job?
Well, I think she could, and I think that there are a lot of political people like Wesley Bell, State Senator Brian Williams, who realize this is an opening. In this first congressional district seat, which can be kind of a lifetime job, this is a chance. There are a lot of Jewish people in the first district, and I think that there's a lot of anger against Cori Bush right now. And there's another young man, Christopher Bedell, who's an attorney downtown for Pisanelli, and I met him at Maxine Clark's place, Delmar Divine, and I was talking to him, and he is a young man interested in politics, and I think there's a lot of people who see this as a once-in-a-lifetime shot. If you let this go by, and I'd say right now Wesley Bell is probably the odds-on favorite against Cori Bush. I mean, if everybody runs together, it'll be hard to beat her.
Well, and even though, as we have mentioned, she's pretty solid in that district, and she doesn't have any money, as Joe Holloman, as your colleague and our colleague, pointed out in his political fix column. She's, what, $20-something thousand in her campaign war chest. And even though he did point out in the column that there's nothing, you know, that says that a last-minute donation couldn't bring the needle way up. But I think you're right. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see somebody this weekend at such a volatile time.
Yeah. But I will say this. First of all, if a lot of people get in, she's not losing. I mean, and that's one of the interesting dynamics. It's much like the Republicans nationally. If you've got Trump against 7 people, and that's certainly what she would be hoping for. I do think Wesley Bell has the best chance. I would say this: if it's a two-person race between Wesley, we really ought to have that kind of system where you wean it down to 2 people, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I was just going to say, I think Wesley Bell would beat her fairly easily in a 2-person race, but I don't think that's what's going to happen, so we'll see.
I was just kind of stole my thunder. Not you didn't know it, but I was going to say, like, I think that's your best case scenario if you did not want her in the office, because I think he would beat her just one-on-one. The more people that are in there, she's saying the merrier. Wesley's campaign sent an email today. 150 people have signed on his campaign. Some names you recognize: Charlie Dooley, some of the mayors of North County communities, some influential people in the community. So you recognize some of those names. That's the first, kind of listing of people that are, okay, we're on the Wesley Bell team. Like you always say, it's a long time between now and the primary. I would, if I were Cori Bush, I might want to not change my stance on maybe what she's thinking, but I would change my stance on what I'm saying.
Well, there's another interesting aspect to it, that not so long ago we had Black Girl Magic, and we had Tashara Jones and Kim Gardner and Cori Bush all together, and now Ms. Gardner is gone, and Tashara Jones has so far, as far as I know, been silent about this congressional race. I mean, she has not stood shoulder to shoulder with Cori Bush.
And which politically is the wisest move in the world.
Well, I don't know. I'll tell you why. PBS NewsHour and NPR recently took a poll, and they found out that an increasing number of Democrats, they even said a plurality, are more sympathetic with Palestinians than with Israelis this year.
That's not in the 1st Congressional District in St. Louis, Missouri.
We'll find out.
Yeah, we will find out.
I think the people who are sympathetic to the Palestinians are just sympathetic to them.
Well,
that's right.
Jewish people are much more.
Well,
can I
think she's going to get a lot of money from out-of-towners. I think she'll get a lot of money from Boeing. I think she'll get a lot of money from law enforcement.
Boeing?
Yes.
Boeing?
Boeing.
You think Cori Bush will get a lot of money from law enforcement?
No, I'm thinking Wesley Bell. Wesley Bell is going to get my mistake.
Charlie, let me say something as a Jewish person on the panel.
I think Wesley Bell will get money from Boeing, law enforcement, as well as out-of-town.
Let me clarify something. There's a lot of people, I happen to be Jewish, that are happen to think President Biden is doing the right thing with calling for the pause. I mean, not everybody is the same on this, but I will say this. First of all, the problem, if you're the Democrats, Cori Bush is much more of a liability to you for not letting go of defund the police, which almost every Democrat has done. This is just the Israeli issue. To me, what was really problematic isn't what she said last weekend. It's that on the day they had the equivalent of 15 9/11s hit hit Israel, she specifically used that day to call for cutting off aid to Israel and blame them, and that to me was pretty crossing a line.
I agree,
but let me just say, it's not just this. Whether it's Jewish people or anything else, Israel is just one issue. I think the defund the police issue, which almost all Democrats try to.
I don't think so, Ray.
I think it's a problem.
She's won since then, though.
The college campuses.
But now. And she still won.
No, but
you're seeing when Rabbi Susan Talvey came out, and you have the mayor of Clayton, and you have other prominent Jewish St. Louisans signing that petition that Alvin described. It had been simmering in the Jewish community. Well, among other things, she has never given an interview to the Jewish Light.
Yeah, well.
And they can't understand why. Well, why
sure
is
they can. I'm sorry, it's anti-Semitism, pure and simple.
Well, no, not necessarily.
Oh, God, Charlie.
That's a strong accusation.
But wait a minute. What he's saying is she's never given them an interview. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean, if I'm offering you the chance to come talk to me and you don't do it, I mean, that's not necessarily because, you're racist or anti-Semite. Let me put it this way.
Wait,
not to interrupt you.
Absolutely.
Cori Bush has never come to the St. Louis American and given us an interview.
Okay.
You know why?
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Here's my theory.
Not since I've been there.
All right.
But guys, she doesn't need to. She plays the media like a Stradivarius. Nobody gets more free publicity. Well, maybe Josh Hawley, than Cori Bush.
There's a lot of analogy between the two of them, believe it or not, despite
but while
the
people were being tortured and murdered, to pick that moment to call for an end to aid to Israel, as Ray said, that if that's not anti-Semitism, I don't know what is.
I didn't use that word.
I did.
I didn't use it, and I'm not going to, but I'll say this. I said real quickly, I think what I wrote about it, I said, she won't be getting, I didn't make any, I'm not calling her any names. She ain't getting my vote. End of story.
I understand.
That's all I said.
Well, I will say.
And I'm not calling her names. It doesn't matter. It
doesn't mean you're anti-Semitic. We understand that.
And real quick, also, let's just be honest here. If Hamas does not attack Israel, is Is Wesley Bell running against Cori Bush? Is
Probably.
Brian
Great point.
Williams
Great
lined
point.
up to run?
Great
so
point.
Obviously,
You're right about that.
Yeah, they're like,
You're right about that.
This is.
Well, that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
It's a once in a lifetime.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is centered on what's going on now, not defund the police or any other thing.
No, you're right. I admit that. I'm just saying for the campaign.
Let me ask you this, just to be the provocateur.
All right.
Are we not a little concerned about Wesley Bell, who on this very program, Next Up, on a Thursday said, hey, I'm not seeking other office, and then 3 or 4 days later announced that he's running for U.S. Senate.
I'm not concerned.
And now he was a candidate for U.S. Senate. Now he's a candidate for Congress. Doesn't that show a little disorganization in the man's mind?
Well, you know, I was the one who asked him and said, how about the 1st Congressional District? A lot of people in it, like me, are unhappy with Cori Bush. And he said, Mr. McClellan, I stay in my lane. And I said, please don't call me Mr. McClellan. I'm not that old. But 4 days later, he announced that he is running.
Well, he just got a different lane.
Yes.
His Google messed up, right?
That's right, his Google map.
Different lane.
His Google map. He veered into that other
I
lane.
don't think that's it.
He's
Okay.
a good young man.
Topic number 2 for the evening. This is a weird alliance, Alvin Reid. I'm talking about Donnie Walters, who's the president of the Ethical Society of Police, the association involving mostly African-American cops in the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, and Jay Ashcroft, the Secretary of State, very conservative, very Republican, who's running for governor. And in an op-ed piece that appeared in the Joplin Globe, the Post-Dispatch, and elsewhere around the state, they call for the state takeover of the local police department, St. Louis, because, among other things, they write that the police officers are issued credit cards from the city, but the credit cards haven't been paid off, so they can't use them. They spend their own money on gas when they take prisoners around. The city doesn't reimburse them. The city vehicles aren't being maintained. The police force has gone from 1,300 officers to 930, and the list goes on. Do you think that with this weird alliance, that actually sometime in the next legislative session, the state will take over?
No, they didn't want any part of it last year. They will not want any part of it next year, because this is just talk. They'll go into Ashcroft and say, like, you do realize we got to pay for all this, okay? Yeah, oh, this is terrible in the city, but okay, are we going to pay these bills? Are we going to make this happen? No, they're not. This is not going to happen. As for this bizarro alliance, let me tell you what. Somebody's whispering something into this guy's ear like, oh, you could be lieutenant governor, or you could do this. You know what you're going to be? Out of a job, buddy. That's what you're going to be, or at least out of running that organization. This is playing with fire to the umpteenth degree.
But if
it is crass ignorance. It is not good for the people of St. Louis.
It might be all of those things. I'm sorry, Bill, but that's the perception, and that is the reality in the minds of a lot of people. He might have those aspirations, but a lot of the things that they're saying are actually true.
Point of order, even though the state takes over, the city still pays the bills.
Yeah, let's be clear.
No, that is not new. That is not it. If the state takes over, now the state is responsible for these things. It's within the budget. But any incurred expense and all that falls on the state. This will create more of a financial burden for the state than it has now. And last time I looked, well, I can't say we're broke because we're sitting on all this money that nobody wants to spend. But yes, this will be incurred expense for the state.
Alvin, I think what they're talking about, I could be wrong, but I think they're talking about going back to the system where the governor appoints the 5 members of the police commissioners. And, you know, I was one of those people, I happen to believe, I'm still for local control. I mean, it's just, one of the worst run state governments. I mean, great, we need them running it. And by the way, the idea that that's somehow apolitical when the governor's picking 5 people, handpicking them, of course it's political. Regardless of the Democratic, Republican governor, it doesn't matter. Of course it's political. I think that what we messed up in local control is not having a police board and not having a serious, empowered citizens review board, because there's a lack of accountability. It's St. Louis's thing, and Jefferson City, they will talk about it, by the way, but they'll do what they usually do in an election year. They'll talk about it, get whatever, milk whatever benefit is, and then not do it.
Well, you know, I remember when it was state-controlled, and we had a police board, and I was in favor of local control. And now that I've seen local control, I'm not so sure. I mean, the businessmen, and they were almost always businessmen, that the governor would appoint, and it's political in a sense. It's a favor to these people, but the businessmen want to keep a lid on things. They just want the city to be calm. And right now, I don't see the city leaders. There's no police board. It's just the mayor and the new police chief from Delaware. Is that where he's? Yeah. And things are out of control. And I look at that and I think, well, I think we might have been better off with businessmen in charge.
And I remember when you were the one fighting for the Citizens Review. I mean, but this was...
Well, that's it. There is one technically, but...
Right. But I remember thinking at the time, what's he talking? I mean, honestly, that's how much things have changed over the course of
I
time.
agree with Bill about needing a police board. I just think it should be appointed by the mayor, confirmed by the alderman. I think
Reid,
that's what we should.
How about this? This is kind of strange, too. Josh Hawley, the senior senator from the state of Missouri, how about that? He is proposing a law which would kind of fly in the face of the famous Citizens United Supreme Court ruling that said that corporations can give unlimited amounts of money to political action committees. And that's the way it is right now. So he wants a curb on campaign spending by corporations. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I mean, I'm kind of like with Hawley, like I would be with, aside from this partisanship, as I am with Bush, which is he crossed a line when he decided to overthrow our democracy. So it doesn't matter to me what he does. This is up to 3 things that I generally agree with him on. One would be he's done a good job on standing up finally for the folks in Coldwater Creek, the Coldwater Creek situation. And secondly, there was another issue. The stock investing he's right on. But the interesting thing is on stock investing and now on this one, he seems to be following Lucas Kuntz's campaign literature to be a populist. I think the last thing I'll say is I think Hawley has the benefit of being on the populist side of campaign finance, knowing it won't pass, so he can kind of take credit for trying. It ain't going anywhere.
And by the way, Lucas Kuntz is running in the Democratic primary.
Lucas Kuntz, and this is the kind of issue that Lucas is
against
all over.
Carla May.
Yeah, against Carla May, who's a great...
I was going to say, and Wesley Bell.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
How times change.
But Wesley's going to have 3 jobs.
Pretty much.
Until there's a lane change.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the legislation would be constitutional because the Supreme Court already ruled, right, that the corporations are kind of like human beings and they have a right to free speech and they can give it any amount of money they want.
You could craft legislation, but it's not going to pass.
Craft legislation.
It's not happening.
Maybe, you know, like, I think that could be done. Yeah. And even if conservative people drew it up, I think the conservative Supreme Court would probably stand with it. But there's no partisanship on the Supreme Court, of course. I just found it interesting, the reaction to Josh Hawley by Mitch McConnell, who doesn't say very strong anything anytime, but he put it in pretty simple terms, like, we'll destroy you.
So like Khrushchev, we will destroy you.
Continue this, and you'll be back in Missouri.
We will bury you. Yeah.
Mitch McConnell has the Senate Leadership Fund, which gets money from corporations, and it funded Josh Hawley's campaign against Claire McCaskill.
I understand.
Well, yeah, Hawley's all about dark money. Don't misunderstand.
I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I just think it's, I mean...
Alvin, what do you think about Hazelwood, according, I think, was it the Post-Dispatch or somebody else? NPR.
That was NPR and St. Louis Public Radio.
KWMU.
Okay, very well. Took a look at a practice that the schools in Hazelwood have now. They're cracking down on what they call educational larceny. They're saying that there are a lot of kids who are attending their schools but who don't live in the district. And in Missouri, you have to live in the district to attend the local schools. So they're really going to people's homes, and in one report they're actually looking through closets to make sure that the kids' clothing is in the closet, because if it's not, they wonder how this could not be your actual address. Some people think that the school district has gone too far because some of the children are being kicked out of school mid-semester. What do you think?
Well, I think a school district has a right to people that are paying taxes to that school district to have students from that school district. Now, the voluntary transfer is one thing, but I think people are looking at Hazelwood and saying, like, oh, that's terrible, that's unfair. If Kirkwood did this or Ladue did this, I don't think there'd be a peep, because they'd say, like, oh, no, those are really, really good schools. And I'm not saying Hazelwood has bad schools, But I'm just saying that I think a district has this right, and you cannot tell Hazelwood that they cannot do this. You're wrong if you're not telling every district in Missouri that you'd be wrong if you did that. So I support Hazelwood. Now, I don't know that they're rummaging through people's closets. I'd have to see some verifiable proof of that. But at the same time, if they're being strict with who attends school and you have to live in this district to attend these district schools, I have no problem.
Well, especially you have, it's Riverview Gardens in Normandy right there too.
Right.
And, you know, my heart goes out to the parents. If I had a child going to a school district that was just chaos, I would do whatever I could to get my child in a different school district. But Alvin brings up a really good point. You know, the district does have a responsibility to the students from that district.
You do realize that you're outlining the immigration debate in this country, don't you? In a sense.
In a sense.
In a sense.
Right.
Okay. Just checking. Just checking.
I have mixed feelings about it. It was a really good story, and you're absolutely right. I mean, there's no question about this district's right. I was talking to a teacher about this today, and what's left out, even in the story, is there's a lot of subjectivity on the part of the school districts. So, for example, most of the time that they're looking at a kid, it's because the kid's in trouble or getting bad grades. If they have a straight A student and, you know, getting great test scores, they're gonna, this case by case, so they kind of look the other way. And you're absolutely right.
Are you talking about Hazelwood in particular?
Well, no, I'm talking about schools in general. And you're right. There's other school districts. Clayton is one that was known for that, for checking out, and they have every right to. I'm not arguing that point. But don't underestimate the subjectivity that's involved in which kids
I don't know about
get
Hazelwood,
investigated.
though, Ray, because they were pointing out that
and I think Hazelwood is the same as any other district.
They're saying there were like 2,000 investigations
Well,
in a school district of 17,000 students. So they couldn't just be going for the poor students.
Well, I'm just telling you,
that many poor students.
I think that you have to be, I don't know. I think that they still have to start with something. Usually it's the kid getting in trouble or something.
But
and
just
I'm
to be
just
clear,
trying
that
to make
was
the
not
point.
part of the reporting.
I understand. That's what I'm adding to it. I think it was a good story, but I think we need to take that into account. And in the same vein, some of the things in the story, like a kid that's like 1 month away or something from finishing the semester, I think you've got to use a little bit of subjectivity.
I would think so, too.
That's
no,
all.
I did see that in Clayton, where a woman was a waitress, and she lost her job in Clayton and ended up moving to Webster. And her son, who we had known since the days of kindergarten on the swings, he had to leave second semester senior year.
And that's tough. And and again, I happen to be biased toward Clayton, but I think Alvin's got a great point. And that is, let's have the same standard for everybody. And I just think we have to not lose sight of the subjectivity of this.
There is legislation at the state level in Jeff City which would say open enrollment. If you're a taxpayer in the state of Missouri, you can go to the school district of your choice.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
But you know what?
It's one of
in your
those
heart of
bills
hearts, you
that's
know
not
it's the
going to
fairest
pass.
thing.
Wait, I do understand that, but like I said, there's a lot of things that, that's just like the state taking over the police department. Yeah, y'all down there talking tough, right? And then the days they're like, okay, you're going to get that call from that guy in that district.
And, I think most educators think that Riverview Gardens in Normandy got that possible accreditation, probationary accreditation, just to stop all that from these kids being able to go anywhere else. So, I mean, it's a mess.
Final topic, Wendy. Barbie was a huge sensation. Great movie that, critically acclaimed movie. Sold a lot of tickets. And now it turns out that Build-A-Bear, based in St. Louis, is going to have a movie. And the CEO, whose name is Sharon Price John, is quoted in today's St. Louis Post-Dispatch. And she says, it's great because it's going to help market our products in the stores, which to me is a little concerning that here's a movie that's really a commercial designed to generate sales using kids as consumers. What do you say?
I say that, you know, when I was a kid, and that was many moons ago, on a black and white television set, they were doing the same thing with like breakfast cereal. It's such a bold thing for somebody to say, hey, we're going to sell a lot of bears. But is she just being honest? I mean, you know, is that just the marketing world today. I don't know.
I can take it even farther back than that. We have Sirius Radio, and if you ever listen to Radio Classics, they play the old shows and they play the commercials.
Yeah.
And tell your parents to buy such and such cereal and put it in the box tops. And that commercial's not aimed at the parent. It's aimed at the kid who was listening to Superman on the radio.
And remember,
so this is nothing new.
E.T. really launched Reese's Pieces. The candy. So I mean, that's what we've always
and Jurassic Park.
done.
Hang on a second. But E.T. was a movie that enlightened and it entertained. And that is, maybe even informed some.
Sure
I
there
don't
will
know.
be a lot of character
it just
development
seems to me, I'm a little concerned about using kids as a vehicle to make profits for the shareholders.
Look, I mean, the tobacco companies did it for years.
And that was horrible.
No, and in an extreme
and that
example.
was very harmful.
I'm
not saying
the
Build-A-Bears are quite like tobacco.
No, I'm just saying that's an example where you got a point. But in terms of kids who are even little kids are pretty, sophisticated these days. The idea that first of all, there's product placements.
Kids are sophisticated. Kids who like teddy bears are sophisticated?
Well, I mean, they're enough able to listen to messages and tell their parents what they think, and it's fine. I mean, look, and Build-A-Bear is not exactly Joe Campbell.
And if you're trying to sell teddy bears, your market is kids.
Right.
Again.
All right.
And there's product placement.
And you can always write us.
Exactly.
And we'll find out how people viewed last week's show. The focus should be the town of La Oroya in Peru, where Doe Run's mining operation has resulted in lead poisoning found in the blood of 90% of the population, and the town being ranked among the 10 most polluted places on Earth. Doe Run failed to protect the people and environment of La Oroya, and the lawsuit should be tried in federal court in St. Louis, where its corporate headquarters reside. That from Mary Phelan of Webster Groves. M. Wright of Rock Hill wrote, in Missouri, if you locate a dead deer on a state highway, call MoDOT. If you hit and kill a deer, the Missouri Department of Conservation may permit you to claim the meat. Thank you. You can write us care of 9PBS. Use zip code 63108. We love those emails and those posts on X, and you can also listen to us on the 9 line, 314-512-9094. Don't forget to listen to us on your favorite podcast source, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn. That's it for this week's program. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to fall back Sunday morning. We'll see you next Thursday.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.